So the last kind of topic I want to cover with the songwriting approaches is sampling and the Logic sampler that has previously gotten a massive upgrade. It used to be this plugin called the EXS24, and it was like the most confusing plugin to open and operate, and you really only used like less than 5% of it to make what you want to happen. So I'm very glad that it got a previous upgrade, because this one's much better. It's actually called the sampler, which is crazy. But yeah, so sampling is kind of a very difficult, convoluted, divisive subject in this industry, because you want to, if you're recording in Logic and you're making kind of your own original stuff, or if you're working in a project that at some point eventually requires a sample of some sort, you want to just be very careful that you're pulling from licensed material, and that you read up on your copyright law and make sure that the section you're taking is suitable, is permissible for the length it is, for what location in the song you're actually pulling from, and who's the artist, and like what is it important to their track enough. And there's always kind of very weird non-intuitive rules when it comes to sampling other people's material. But just relatively speaking, sampling is utilizing audio clips or files from other third-party applications and sources and all of that. So if you could sample licensed music that you can find just on any streaming service, or you could sample individual sounds like Splice or Looperman or whatever. They all have like individual samples you can drag and drop, and those are like royalty free, and this is like a sample bank that you're actually meant to pay and subscribe for, that you could pull material from. That's the whole point of those. But when you're working with samples in Logic, you just want to kind of have these couple things in mind when you get started to kind of to guide you in the right direction. So the Apple Loops library, this is technically sampling, because it's an external audio file that you're dragging into your project and then modifying. So just don't think about it like that, though. These are meant to help you start songs and whatnot, and add layers to existing songs and all of that. Sampling is really kind of dragging in from third-party sources. So the couple things I want to show you when it comes to sampling, one of them being the sampler, is probably going to be the first. So say I wanted some horns here. I'll drag them in. It'll make a new audio file for me. It's going to ask me if I want to import the tempo information. Notice that the tempo is 100, the key is C. I'm in 130 BPM. So if I import that, it'll change my file to 100 BPM. Now the first 2 bars of my song are going to sound like this. Very cool. Now say I want to sample maybe just like from here to here, these like dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 right? So if I just want that one section, I could do what I just did, which is take the marquee tool, hold Command, and now I could basically slice up my project however I want. Not my project, but my file. You could also go and use the playhead, select it, Command T. That'll do the same thing. But there's a much kind of better way to get that one section to trigger by itself, which I'll show you. It's called the sampler. So I'll drag this into a new track window. This one using the quick sample, and that's not the only option. You could use a drum machine designer. You could put it in a zone sampler. You can have it do a granular synthesis sample in Alchemy, which is complicated, and we'll not get to it today. But if I use the quick sampler, it'll basically make that audio file into a quick sample that we could play on our keyboard. So now this actually follows the pitch. So I could repitch it to whatever note I want. And if it's on one shot, it'll play the whole sample. So notice it's playing a lot slower now, and it's using kind of a time stretching algorithm that maintains the pitch, but not the time. So the pitch drifts with the key that you're actually playing in, and the time or I said that backwards. It maintains the time. It changes both the pitch and the time, because it resamples it down to the pitch you're playing it in, and the time stretches to make it longer because you sampled it down. So Forgive me if I was confusing. But the other option here is the slice mode, and this will actually draw in some transient markers. So C1 here, this note will only play this section of the sample. The second note will only play the second note, and so far. So notice when I go up the keyboard now, it's not changing in pitch, it's changing in location of the sample. So if I wanted to play like it's kind of more of a percussive tool because I'm using the keyboard to trigger different locations rather than pitch. So you're not necessarily building melodies off of this. You're kind of building like timing and stuff. You could certainly build melodies because all of these have a note, baked into them. It's not C#1 and it's not D1. This is its own kind of note, and I'll help you kind of identify that in another section. It's called the flexing tool. But this kind of sampler window is meant for you to just like break up the file into different transient markers so that you could trigger those with the hit of a key. So yeah, and kind of all this confusing stuff down here you can play around with on your own time, but it's basically modifying the the LFO, the pitch, the filter, and the amplifier of the sample you're actually playing. And you could move these transients around, and delete them. Double click to delete, by the way. So if I wanted that three stab section that I tried to get with my little marquee tool down here, now I know that C#1 will play that one section. So all I have to do is hit this note, and I'll show you what it looks like when you go to record. I'll put the keyboard away, put this away, press R. Sorry that I had them both recording at the same time, but you get the point. Quantize these. Shoot, I closed my window. Quantize these. So this first one, it only plays that length of the sample because that's how long I held the note down for. Give me my sampler window back here. This guy. Well, because it's a very short sample. But say I put it down here. No matter how long I held that note for, it's going to play through this entire section of the sample. So it doesn't matter if it's this long or if it's this long. It's going to play through this section. So it's kind of like a one-shot for each of these different slice locations. So yeah, that's kind of the sampler and everything that you probably need to get started with it. I'm going to delete these two.